What happens when men in China finally decide to spend a little money on themselves? The stupid tax label gets slapped on them so fast it leaves a mark. Isn't that a familiar script? You spend your own hard-earned cash on something you love, and the next thing you know, you're a trending topic on social media, branded as a creator of garbage. How are you supposed to just swallow that? So, guess what? The very tool I use to make a living, the thing I cherish every single day, my keyboard, was suddenly, and very publicly, condemned as e-waste. It happened just last week. I had just spent a small fortune and a ton of effort building my new dream keyboard. The keycaps are translucent, the RGB lighting is a symphony of color, and the sound it makes when I type? Chef's kiss. I was in the honeymoon phase with my new baby, and then a social media headline smacked me right in the face. The e-waste trinity that scams Chinese men out of billions. I almost spat my Coke all over the screen. Seriously? I've been clacking away on keyboards like this for over a decade. Does that mean I've been lovingly polishing a piece of e-waste every single day? Okay, we need to unpack this. The whole thing started when someone threw out some scary-sounding data. They said the Chinese keyboard market is about to explode to 15 billion RMB, heading for 30 billion within 5 years. Gamepads are pulling in 40 million a month. Then the narrative takes a sharp turn and pins this entire growth on one demographic: middle-aged, straight men. The argument is that these guys are desperately buying up this e-waste, keyboards, mice, gamepads, spending thousands just to feel something in their mundane lives, and in the process creating millions of tons of e-waste and destroying the planet. The accusation is so broad and so perfectly round, they might as well have just tattooed "gullible man with too much money" on our foreheads. And as I sat there, fuming, I was also struck by just how fundamentally wrong the whole argument is. First of all, this straight man's hobby label is absurdly out of date. Mechanical keyboards haven't been an old boys club for years. Industry data from 2023 shows that the proportion of female users is surging, now making up nearly 40% of the market. Remember that lipstick-colored keyboard from Lofree? It sold like crazy. The Sanrio collaboration from Dare You? It was a massive hit with women. Who can resist cute, rounded keycaps and beautiful colorways? How many women have willingly opened their wallets for a gorgeous set of keycaps? You can't just pin this all on men. That's not a targeted critique. That's just sloppy, friendly fire. And then there's the mockery of RGB lighting, the so-called spiritual uniform of the internet cafe tryhard. That stereotype belongs in a museum. Today, RGB is the god of atmosphere. The flowing, ethereal light in a Sea-View PC case, the glow beneath a display of collectibles, it elevates the entire vibe of a gaming room. At night, when the only sound is the click of the keys and 27 colors breathe in rhythm with your typing, what's the fundamental difference between that and the aunties and uncles getting their groove on to ridiculously loud music in the public square? It's about finding your own happiness. How does that deserve to be condemned as trash? The world of gamepads is even more nuanced. For a serious gamer, a gamepad is like a high-heeled shoe in a woman's closet. You need the right one for the right occasion. For a first-person shooter, you need a joystick with millimeter-perfect precision. For a Souls-like game, you need buttons with a lightning-fast response. A real enthusiast will have 3 or 4 different controllers, each with its own specialty, just as a fashion-conscious person has different shoes for different outfits. Outsiders see a wall of gamepads and scream, "stupid tax." But really, it's the same as a man being unable to tell the difference between period red and tomato red lipstick. It's a classic case of information gap creating a joke. But the thing that gets me the most is this stupid tax accusation. A keyboard has 2 critical functions. First, it is a productivity tool. A good keyboard with the right switch, the perfect sound, and the ideal actuation force directly impacts your typing efficiency and mood. The difference in experience between a cheap membrane keyboard and a well-tuned mechanical one after a full day of work is night and day. And thanks to fierce competition, you can now get an excellent keyboard for a fraction of what it used to cost. If it boosts my productivity and makes me happier, how is that a waste of money? And second, it provides emotional value. People will pay tens of thousands for a limited edition sneaker. They'll hunt down a rare Pop Mart toy with a crazy markup. So if I or any other enthusiast want to spend a few $1,000s on a uniquely designed, beautifully crafted keyboard, is that really so insane? The joy of unboxing it, of feeling the keys under my fingers, how is that fundamentally different from collecting art or sneakers? Why is my hobby a stupid tax and theirs is a passion? And the biggest and most hypocritical weapon they wield is the environmental one. Yes, electronics create e-waste, but let's be real. The world produces over 50 million tons of e-waste every year. And who are the real culprits? It's the smartphones, the tablets, the laptops, the mass market devices that everyone owns and that are designed to be replaced every year or two. We're talking 1.2 billion smartphones shipped globally in 2023. The sales of keyboards and gamepads aren't even a rounding error compared to that. To ignore the relentless, wasteful upgrade cycle of the smartphone industry, to ignore the mountains of perfectly functional old phones, and instead focus your righteous fury on a relatively niche hobby where products are often used for years, isn't that just a little bit disingenuous? It's the classic case of picking on the little guy because it's an easy target for outrage clicks. Ultimately, this whole uproar is a battle over the right to consume. For years, the stereotype was that men don't deserve to spend money on nice things for themselves. Now, when men finally decide to buy something tangible, something that is both useful and brings them joy, they're put on a moral trial for being wasteful idiots. And the irony? The same environmental warriors pointing fingers are probably typing their angry comments on the latest iPhone while wearing 10 times markup sneakers. The hypocrisy is breathtaking. Look, we so-called keyboard warriors and gamepad geeks aren't criminals. We're spending our own money on a small, tangible piece of happiness that improves our work and our leisure time. Who are we hurting? Why do we deserve to be dragged on social media and used as a negative example? In our hyper-consumerist world, if the very act of consumption is a sin, then none of us are innocent. The hands we use to create and to play should not be so easily branded as the hands of a garbage maker. A poet of our modern age might say of this moment, "The e-waste charge a three-pronged attack, the stupid tax label a knife in the back, the green crusade a loud and biased shout, while yearly phones are what it's all about. Let each man find the joy he wants to own, and let the bitter critics moan and groan. The click of keys, a sharp and pearly sound, more precious than the hate that floats around." That's all the time we have for today. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.